Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be talking about my March TBR stack, and I'm very excited about what I'm going to be reading this month. I'm excited to start reading physical books again. If you watched my February wrap-up, you know that I only actually physically read one book, and then the other books that I did were all audiobook. And I do love audiobooks, and I still plan on listening to some, but I don't want that to be everything that I read. You're probably getting a little bit tired of hearing about it, but this is my new shelf, or my new bookcase that I put together. I did all the stuff, and then my husband helped me put it together, but the sanding and the staining and everything. And at the end of this video, I'll do a little bit of a close-up of each of the sections of it. But everything on this bookshelf is a TBR book. All of it. These are all books that I either haven't read or I want to reread. And there's a lot of them. But that's part of why I came up with my TBR card game that I do, is I want to start reading these, and I also want to have a lot of books on here so that when I go through that card game, I have plenty to pick from for all the different tropes. I'm not going to be able to do the card game today. I found my list with all the prompts on it, but I have not found the deck of cards or the die that go with it. I'm sure I'll find the box soon, though. I'm very confident that next month I'll be able to play the TBR card game again. And I'm looking forward to it because I really miss playing that game. I love doing that. I think it's so fun. When I do my seasonal most anticipated book videos, I ask you guys which ones you want me to read, and I keep track of that, and the ones that get the most mentions are the ones that I try to read. And sometimes there's a book that, I don't know, I just can't stop thinking about and feeling like I need to read anyway. And for me, this next book here that I'm going to be reading, well, I actually just started it, but this book is one of those books that I just couldn't get out of my mind. The storyline just sounds amazing, and I just really want to read it. And as you know, if you saw my last video, I've been reading or listening to a lot of Harlan Coben books, and I actually really enjoy listening to them. I don't think I'll actually physically read any of his books, but I like that intensity and the high energy and the adventure of the books, and this book kind of seems like one of those books where it's going to be hard to put down, and I'm going to be very excited to read it. This book came out in December, and it's 48 Hours to Kill by Andrew Bourelle. This book just sounds so good to me. It's a story about a guy named Ethan who is in prison, and he finds out that his sister got, they think she got murdered. They haven't found her body, but he's been told that he can get out on what's that called, furlough, for 48 hours to go to her funeral. When he goes on furlough, he learns a terrible secret about his sister's mysterious death and descends back into the criminal underworld to uncover the truth. I'm assuming he probably is going to try to get revenge on who killed her. And I love books about siblings. There's just something so interesting to me about the sibling relationships. There's so many people that are just so connected to their siblings, even if they don't like them or they don't get along with them. There's always that connection of growing up together. Lee Child, who is an author that I used to read a lot, I kind of got out of reading his books, but they are really, really good books. He says, a perfect ticking clock thriller with depth, character, and mystery. Very highly recommended. I want to read These Bones Are Not My Child. And this book is part of A.J. Dunn's book club. If you haven't joined and you want to, be sure to join. I'll put the link to that video down in the description box. In a suspenseful novel of uncommon depth and intensity, Toni Cade Bambara renders a harrowing portrait of a city under siege. Having elected its first black mayor in 1980 Atlanta projected an image of political progressiveness and prosperity. But between September 1979 and June 1981, more than 40 black children were kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and brutally murdered throughout the city too busy to hate. A separated mother of 3, holding down several jobs, Zala Spencer, has managed to survive on the margins of a flourishing economy until she awakens the morning of Sunday, July 20th, 1980, to find her teenage son, Sonny, missing. As the hours turn into days, Zala realizes that Sonny is among the many cases of missing children just beginning to attract national attention. Growing increasingly disillusioned with the authorities, who respond to Sonny's disappearance with cold indifference, Zala and her estranged husband embark on a desperate search. Throughout the eyes of a family seized by anguish and terror, we watch a city roiling with political, racial, and class tensions. Written over a span of 12 years and edited by Toni Morrison, who calls These Bones Are Not My Child the author's magnum opus, Bambara's last novel leaves us with an enduring and revelatory chronicle of an American nightmare. That sounds amazing. That's one of my biggest fears, is that if something happened, the cops wouldn't care, or that I might get accused of something I didn't do. This book is 669 pages long. So I'm in for quite a treat. I have a goal of reading a classic novel each month in the year of 2022. I didn't read one last month, so I'm going to try to read 2 this month. The first one is Of Human Bondage by W. Somerset Maugham. I love this cover. And I think the movie with Bette Davis is based off of this book. One of the great novels of the 20th century, Of Human Bondage tells a fascinating tale of sexual obsession. The story, taking its title from Spinoza's Ethics of Human Bondage, or The Strength of the Emotions, follows Philip Carey in his search for freedom from the strict, oppressive Christian upbringing he suffered as an orphan in an English vicarage. Philip sets out on a journey of discovery that leads him to Heidelberg and to Paris. But it is back in London that Philip's enthrallment with Mildred, the slatternly pale waitress who makes him a slave to desire, awakens him to the world of obsessive love, deep passion, and true self-discovery. The unforgettable love story is as timeless as it is involving, an intimate tale of human relationships that Theodore Dreiser called a work of genius. Why haven't they remade that movie? I know that movie won a lot of awards, and I mean, Bette Davis was in it, so obviously it was good, right? Sorry, I'm pretty biased on that, though. She's my favorite actress. But I'm surprised they haven't remade it, though, because it sounds awfully juicy. And back in the 40s, which is when I think this movie came out, they didn't get real juicy with movies. The next classic is Silas Marner by George Eliot. George Eliot is an English novelist whose real name is Mary Ann Evans. She used the pen name George Eliot because back when she wrote this book, well, women didn't tend to write books, and if they did, no one wanted to read them. A lot of women that wrote novels in the 1800s used pen names that either didn't reveal what gender they were or that were masculine sounding names so that people would still read their books. Yeah, we've definitely come a long way with that. This book is set in the early years of the 19th century. Silas Marner, a weaver, is a member of a small Calvinist congregation in Lantern Yard, a slum street in northern England. he is falsely accused of stealing the congregation's funds while watching over the very ill deacon. Doesn't that sound intriguing? And I've heard this is her best book. I'm so excited to read it. With Book of the Month, I had a really hard time deciding between two of the books, so I decided to get them both. So I chose The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. In 1977, Clear Lake, Oregon was shaken by the Lady Killer murders. Two men, seemingly randomly, were murdered with the same gun, with strange notes left behind. Beth Greer was the perfect suspect, a rich, eccentric 23-year-old woman, seen fleeing one of the crime scenes. But she was acquitted, and she retreated to the isolation of her mansion. Oregon, 2017. Shay Collins is a receptionist, but by night she runs a true crime website, The Book of Cold Cases, a passion fueled by the attempted abduction she escaped as a child. When she meets Beth by chance, Shay asks her for an interview. To Shay's surprise, Beth says yes. They meet regularly at Beth's mansion. Shay is never comfortable there. Items move when she's not looking, and she could swear she's seen a girl outside the window. The allure of learning the truth about the case from the smart, charming Beth is too much to resist. But even as they grow closer, Shay senses something isn't right. Is she making friends with a manipulative murderer, or are there other dangers lurking in the darkness of the Greer house? Doesn't that sound good? I've never read Simone St. James before. Let me know if you have. I've heard she's really good, and this will be my first book by her, which I'm excited that it'll be this one because it sounds amazing. And if you have read any of her books, let me know which ones you recommend. And the last book that I plan on reading is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. This book hasn't arrived yet. Jess needs a fresh start. She's broke and alone, and she's just left her job under less than ideal circumstances. Her half-brother Ben didn't sound thrilled when she asked if she could crash with him for a bit, but he didn't say no. And surely everything will look better from Paris. Only when she shows up to find a very nice apartment. Could Ben really have afforded this? He's not there. The longer Ben stays missing, the more Jess starts to dig into her brother's situation, and the more questions she has. Ben's neighbors are an eclectic bunch, and not particularly friendly. Jess may have come to Paris to escape her past, but it's just starting to look like it's Ben's future that's in question. The socialite, the nice guy, the alcoholic, the girl on the verge, the concierge. Everyone's a neighbor, everyone's a suspect, and everyone knows something they're not telling. That book sounds amazing, but as I mentioned earlier, I love books about siblings, and I think if something were to happen to one of my brothers, I would, like the first book and this one, I would go to great lengths to try to figure out what happened to them. There's just that connection that is undeniable with siblings. I would love to know if you've read any of these books or if you're planning on reading any of these books. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or night. Happy reading. Bye.